Greetings, metalheads. Welcome back to the Friday 13th YouTube channel. Today, you're going to be watching a fantastic interview with Jeff Pilson, formerly with Dokken, as we're talking about the new album for the band, The End Machine. Now, the band are about have just released their new album. It's called The Quantum Phase. It's a fantastic album released on Frontiers. So I want to thank Jeff Pilson for doing this interview. Thanks for watching, metalheads. Enjoy. Take.
Hello, how you doing?
How you doing, brother? Good to speak to you. Thank you for doing this interview.
Of course, nice t-shirt.
Yeah, great, man.
And really great backdrop. I gotta say, backdrop's fabulous.
It gets better. It gets better. So I'd like to thank you. We're talking to Jeff Pilson from the End Machine, former Dokken. So thank you and welcome to Friday 13th YouTube channel, Jeff.
Great to be here.
So I'm going to ask you some warm-up questions first. As a bass player, I want to ask you who your influences are and how did you get into the bass guitar? What age did you learn to play the bass?
I started playing bass at 12. And my first influences were like the Jack Bruces and people like that. Yeah, I mean, and I was into Zeppelin and Purple and Sabbath and all that kind of stuff. So all those guys at first, and then I got totally into Chris Squire from Yes, and I became a diehard Chris Squire fan, and learned. I mean, I bought a Rickenbacker bass. I played through 412s. I was so in, or 812s, I should say. I was so into him. I learned every song. I mean, I was really fanatical about Chris Squire and most of the prog stuff. A lot of the ELP I'd play along to, and Gentle Giant and Genesis. I loved that stuff, and but that's what really got me, I think, to become a serious player, because the playing was challenging and I had to learn all that, and learning that was really great. And like I say, I think it made me a better player. So I'm very thankful. And I at least before he passed, I did get to thank Chris, which was great.
That's awesome. So prog rock is a big influence on you, like King Crimson as well and all those other
Oh
bands.
yeah, Crimson, definitely.
Okay,
In
so
fact, it's funny. I'm working on a progressive project that I had with Craig Goldie, Scott Warren from Dio, Craig and Scott from Dio, and then a drummer by the name of Tim Pedersen. We recorded a bunch of music 30 years ago, some very, very proggy stuff, very crimson-y. And just lately, we've been like putting real drums on the songs that didn't have real drums. Some of them did. We recorded it back then, but we're now putting real drums on some, like we have an epic 17-minute song, and we just put real drums on that. And that's really exciting stuff. So hoping to put that out sometime. I'd like it next year, but who knows? I have to do it in between projects to finish it. But that's going to be a really, really cool project when it comes out. It's going to shock people. It's very proggy.
excellent. So if you make it a 25-minute song plus, it could be a Dream Theater epic.
Yeah. Well, it's our own version of an epic. Don't want to get to 25 minutes. 17 is long enough.
So what bass guitar did you learn to play first? What was your very first bass guitar?
My very first bass guitar was a Tiesco Del Rey that I had for the first probably 2 years, I guess, that I played. And then my parents bought me a Gibson EB3, and that was my first like real professional kind of instrument. And frankly, that was kind of a dog. That bass was not a great bass. It was a brand new one when we got it, and by that point, that was like 1973, probably 72. Actually, I think I got that, and that was not a great period for those instruments. So that was kind of a dog. So then the next one I got rid of that and got the Rickenbacker, and then I was off and running.
The one you said the Rickenbacker was Lemmy an influence.
No, not at that
Okay.
point. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I mean, I got a Rickenbacker before I even knew who Motorhead was. I mean, I knew Budgie at the time,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he was in that, right? But no, it was because of Chris Squire.
Oh
Totally.
no, Lemmy was in Hawkwind.
Oh, Hawkwind, right. Who was
Yeah.
in Budgie? Somebody was in Budgie.
Yeah, I'm not sure. They were a band
But
from
anyway,
Wales,
but
I remember.
yeah, right. But no, it was and McCartney too, because I knew McCartney had a Rickenbacker, but it was mostly because of Chris Squire.
Okay then. So I mean, growing up then, what was your very first band before Dokken got together? What was the very first band? I mean, you was in that band Love and War. Was it Love and War with
One
Paris
Piece.
from War and Peace? Sorry, yeah, with Paris who joined Fight. I mean, you did the one album on Shrapnel. I mean,
Right.
that must have been a good album for you.
Oh, it was a lot of fun. I mean, that was a very fun band. That was a very, at one point, Tommy Hendrickson and Ricky Parent, Tommy was the bass player, Ricky was the drummer. They were living with me, and Russ didn't live with us, but we were really close knit. That was a very, very wonderful period in my life. Great people, great camaraderie. Unfortunately, the music we were doing had nothing to do with anything record labels were interested in at the time because the grunge thing had started. But yeah, it was a very positive experience.
Did you ever get asked to do another album since the period of the grunges died? Do you?
Well, I kind of maintained War and Peace in a very distant sort of way. I mean, I put out my own record. I think it was in 2005, where I played most of the instruments on it, and that was a War and Peace record. Plus, if you go through, there's like other War and Peace records that were, like the original War and Peace, which was done right in 1988, right as Dokken was breaking up. That came out called the Flesh and Blood Sessions because we were called Flesh and Blood originally, and then had to change the name. But the Flesh and Blood Sessions, that's the real diehard War and Peace. That's the War and Peace that I want people to listen to. It was pretty powerful, cool stuff. So if you ever get a chance to listen to the Flesh and Blood Sessions, that's very cool.
I will check it out, Jeff. I mean, I've heard the album that he did on Shrapnel. I mean, obviously, Shrapnel Records was a guitar shredding label, wasn't it, back then?
Right. The Flesh and Blood Sessions are much heavier, and it's much darker, which was my original intention for War and Peace, but then things shifted. So,
okay, then. So I'm going to move on now and ask you a little bit about Dokken, obviously. What's your favorite Dokken album that you recorded? When you think of the four classic albums,
right? I guess it would be Tooth and Nail because it was such. I mean, I still love that record, and it brings back a lot of positive memories. It was a very, very productive, creative, and powerful time for the band. George and I, during the Break in the Chains tour, he and I would room a lot, and we started writing together a lot in our hotel rooms and came up with a lot of the beginnings of stuff for the Tooth and Nail record. And then when we got home, there was a month of writing where George and I got together every day and worked our butts off. We worked all day and night and came up with a lot of stuff for Tooth and Nail. And that was where, we forged a creative bond in that period that lasts to this day. We still have that bond together. So, and it was really started, that was when it really cemented. And so I have very positive memories of Tooth and Nail. The writing process was great. We'd work all day, and Mick was living with George at the time. So Mick would come home from the bars at 2 a.m, and he'd have a real fresh perspective on it. I mean, he was perhaps a little bit inebriated, but he would come in and hear things like, "Oh, hey guys, why don't you do this?" And we're like, "Yeah, it's a great idea." So, I mean, it was just a fabulous working time for all of us. The pre-production was great. Tom Werman did the record, and the pre-production with Tom was really wonderful because it just had that great bonding feeling, and it felt like a team, and it felt like we were really building something great. So, probably Tooth and Nail.
That is the cult classic album. And you did the soundtrack for Freddy Krueger, Nightmare on Elm Street. That must have been awesome. That
was really fun. And, Robert Englund, of course, really great guy, really funny guy. Doing the video with him was hilarious. And that song, I have a lot of positive memories of that song, too, because George and I had just moved to Arizona, and we just got a 12-track. And that was the first thing we ever did on the 12-track was Dream Warriors. And somewhere I still have that. It's pretty cool.
Okay, I mean, you came back later on with Dokken. You did the Razor Slate album on Steam. That was a really good album, wasn't it?
Thank you. And that's where I got my relationship with Reb Beach, which I still have to this day because I'm doing Black Swan as we speak. That's what I'm working on. So
okay, and you're on the Frontiers then.
Yeah, I mean, it probably won't come out till well into 25, but yes, we are working on a new Black Swan record, and I'm very excited about it.
I'm looking forward to reviewing it because I have reviewed your previous albums. So I'm looking forward to hearing the next one. I mean, look, moving on, we're talking about movies briefly. You did the heavy metal film with Mark Wahlberg.
Yes, Rockstar.
Brilliant film. We all know that was based on Tim Ripper Owens originally, Judas Priest. I mean, it's a great movie. What memories do you have of making that movie?
A lot of good ones. It was just really fun. I mean, for one thing, we had a really great director. He was very tuned into everybody, and he was really cool about the musicians, and he really wanted the musicians to have input. He wanted it to be as genuine as possible. even though, there's parts of the movie that are kind of silly and that, there's a premise, it's a little bit out there, but he wanted it to be authentic. And so it was really fun. He would come up, we'd be doing a scene and he'd be like, so what would you guys do? You're doing this. How would you guys react? And so we got to really have input, and it was really wonderful. I mean, you do a lot of sitting around on a movie. You sit in your trailer a lot. But which is why I like to do yoga. And by the way, if people want to see my virtual meditation class, go to hotforyogascv.com and get the information, because I do a weekly virtual meditation class. And it comes in handy in situations like that where you're sitting around for hours and hours waiting for them to do the lights. Then you go in and you work for 5 minutes, then you wait hours again. So fond memories, but a lot of waiting.
Awesome. Steel Dragon were a pretty cool band. So,
It
Jeff,
was.
we're going to talk about the End Machine. Obviously, we all know it's pretty much Dokken members without Don. I mean, why did you come up with the name End Machine? Who came up with the name?
Well, we wanted to call ourselves The End. We just thought that would be cool, and then we saw it was taken, so we couldn't do that. So I don't remember who added machine, but somehow we got to the End Machine, and it just felt right. But that's why we like to emphasize the end and have machine in smaller letters, like you have in the in your backdrop there, because there's a dark premise to the band, and we're talking about a lot of the really frightening things that are happening in the world. And we have a very dark message with a positive undertone to it. So somewhere in there we do have a positive message that if you do stand up and take charge of your life, you can be a positive force and maybe cause change, so that we don't run into a black hole extinction, as it were. And the name really does it gives us a concept that we're very comfortable with, but we take, somewhat seriously. I mean, we want to have a strong message in our music, and that's why Garish did such a fabulous job on the lyrics. He really came through delivering this message, and wow, that's a great thing.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing you had, Robert Mason, it was obviously with Warren. Who else did you approach for the original singing for the first album? Who did you approach?
Actually, I mean, I think George might have called Don at one point and said, "Hey, we're writing these songs that sound, Dokken like. Do you want to be involved?" And I mean, he wasn't unfriendly about it, but he said something like, "Well, then it's a Dokken reunion, so that's a whole different thing." So yeah, that's right. I didn't think that was going to work out anyways, but George wanted to make the call, and I'm glad he did. We offered. But no, Robert was really the only choice, and that was Serafino from Frontiers. It was his idea because, you know take the Dokken members and put a powerful singer in there. That was the idea.
Right then. So, what fond memories do you have of the first album, The End Machine? Was it a successful album for you as a debut?
It was a really fun process. I mean, it was very enjoyable. I mean, I remember I don't know. I just felt like I liked the chemistry that we had. I liked the approach that we had. Um, and I mean, I found the reaction to be very positive. I mean, Frontiers was a little disappointed. They wanted it a little more Dokken-like, and we kind of came up with something a little bit unique from that. Um, but I'm still proud of it. I still think there's a couple of really, really good songs on the first record. So I have very fond memories.
I mean, I can understand why people say it sounds like Dokken, only because it's got George Lynch's guitar tone.
Yeah,
But that's
yeah.
that's going to be hard to get away from it because of his guitar style.
Which we kind of tried to avoid sounding like Dokken for a long time. And now, especially on this new record, we said, no, if it sounds like Dokken, we were part of the writers of Dokken. What's wrong with it sounding like Dokken?
Yeah.
So when ideas, when we're working on an idea, instead of saying, "Oh, that's too Dokken," like we go, "No, that's cool. Let's go with it." If it's natural and it comes out naturally, why not? That's how we did it with Dokken. So if it worked then, it could work now.
So, what songs do you like from the first album? What's your favorites from the debut?
Probably Leap of Faith and uh I liked Alive Today, but I think Leap of Faith is probably my favorite.
Okay, then. So the second album you come to now was Phase 2, released in 2021. That was the last album with Robert. How successful was that for you? And did it take long to write this album? Did you come up with your own more unique sound and style on the
Well,
second one?
we did a lot of the pre-production remotely, which is not the ideal way to do it, but we had to do it in order to get the songs put together. Um, it wasn't fun. The remote part wasn't as fun as personal stuff on that record. But again, it was a fun process. Nothing really sticks out in my mind, positive or negative about that. I mean, when George and I work together, it's always great. We have a very wonderful chemistry. Robert is a professional who comes in and does what he has to do and nails it. And that's what he did on the second record. I don't think his heart was into the second record quite as much, because I think he felt like the push towards more Dokken-y was not natural for him. I think he felt a little pressured by that. And I understand that. I mean, who wants to try and be a copycat? That's how I think that's how he was feeling. And so there was that tension there that I think made it not as enjoyable for him, I think, as it could have been.
Right then. So Mick did the first album. Who did the second album? Was he involved with the second album, Mick?
No, Mick's brother Steve came in.
I was going to say, is Steve his son? I was going to say, is his son?
No, it's his brother.
Right. Okay.
No, and I mean, talk about the perfect replacement. I mean, my God, the guy couldn't be more perfect. Steve is great. I mean, Mick retired. Mick said, "Look, I'm done drumming. Physically, I'm beat up. I want to enjoy my life," and we totally understood that. So yes, of course, we asked him to do the next record, but he declined, and he said, "Get my brother to do it." And man, what a great decision that was, because he not only plays as able to feel exactly like Mick. I mean, honestly, God, playing with him, it feels like Mick is there. So he knows Mick's playing. He has the feel. He's an amazing player. He knows the studio. He did a lot of studio work in the 90s, so he's very adept in the studio, which is very helpful. Plus, he can sing great, and he sounds a lot like Mick in his voice. It's kind of spooky, really. So yeah, we have Steve now, who is wonderful and just couldn't be a better addition to the band.
That's awesome, because he's got the same last name as me. My name's Brown. So I remember actually meeting Mick on the Dokken tour, and I said to him, "Are we related by any chance?"
Well, you're Scottish?
No, I'm English, but my name's Brown.
Wow, where
I'm in Yorkshire.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say it's not London.
Not too far from Scotland, but I'm up that way.
Yeah, okay. All right. So Yorkshire. Okay, interesting. Yeah. You could be related. I mean, I'm sure he's from somewhere around in there.
So moving on. So like Robert left the band, and you got Gearish. I mean, Gearish, what's his band? Gearish and the Chronicles. I've never actually heard them. Is that where you found him?
Well, actually, he was a suggestion from Serafino, who's the president of Frontiers. Serafino basically just said, "Hey, I want you to check this guy out," to George and I, and we were like, "Wow, he's incredible." And then the suggestion was made, "Well, work right with him, see what happens." And we wrote, and it was great, and it was apparent that he was a writer, and his headspace was completely into what we were doing, and it just worked out amazing.
So did you have any other singers? Any other singers in mind? Because I would have thought of Dino Gillespie, because he's pretty well sought after at the minute.
Right. Well, George had already worked with Dino, so no, we never really talked about that. But I mean, it was really, Garish just came to our attention, and it was immediate. We knew he was going to, I mean, as soon as we worked with him, it was great.
Okay, and so I mean, what do you think of the new as a singer? What do you think of him as a singer? Do you think he's really a great replacement for Robert?
I mean, he's as good a singer as you can be. I mean, he's got incredible dynamics and limitless range, and he's a great writer. His voice sounds great, and he writes great, and those are magical things. And he comes from our music. That's what he was a fan of that. So he really understands that kind of music. So what do I think of him as a singer? I couldn't think much higher. I mean, I think he's absolutely incredible.
Right. I mean, the new album, I've just reviewed it for you, The Quantum Phase. Fantastic album. This kind of reminds me of Dokken and also Lynch Mob, but it also reminds me of King's X and also Badlands.
I've heard other people say Badlands. Yeah, which I love all those comparisons. Yeah, again, we're not afraid to, you know what? I look at it as Dokken on steroids because we got this incredibly powerful singer. And yet he has a melodic ability. So it's melodic in a Dokken sort of way. And the music, of course, with George and I writing the music, it's gonna have a Dokken thing. And yet he puts this really powerful voice to it. So, like I say, I'm very comfortable with saying it's Dokken on steroids.
Right then, so you produced the album. I mean, how long did it take to produce this album? Was it done in one studio, or did you do it in various studios?
Well, we did it mostly here, but Girish's vocals were all done in India. He did his stuff in India, so we had to work remotely with that. Not my favorite way to do it, but he did an incredible job of it. And you have to do emails and Zoom calls and all that kind of thing when you're working remotely. So that's why it's not my choice. But it really worked out great. He's such a force, and he would take suggestions so well. He had to do rewrites, which are very difficult to do, but man, he did an incredible job of it. So he's a complete winner. He really is.
So did he write all the lyrics and you and George write all the music?
Yeah, I mean, there was little lyrics here and there that Georgia and I might have thrown at him, suggestions and spots, but he wrote, 90% of it at least, I would say. And we made melody suggestions. More melody than lyric suggestions, but yeah, he did most of it though, absolutely.
So how long did it take to record the album?
Couldn't tell you. Because I have to do these things in shifts. I have, time off the road. I work on this. So it's done over a period of several months. But honestly, I'd have to actually really think about it to figure out how long it took. Period of months, let's put it that way.
So what sort of your favorite songs, Jeff, from this new album? What's your favorites?
Well, my favorite would be Black Hole Extinction. I love that song. And when we wrote the music, I didn't necessarily think it was going to be, but what Girish put on it was just so incredible. He really turned it into a strong song, which was great. So Black Hole Extinction, I do love Silent Winter as well. I love Time. I love Shattered Glass Heart. I love Hunted. I mean, there's just a bunch of songs on there that I just Stranger in the Mirror. I love that. I mean, there's a lot of songs on there that I really, really enjoy. I think it's to be taken as a whole record, not just individual songs. I mean, to listen to it as a full record is a very satisfying thing for me, and I encourage people to do that.
Right then. So who came up with the title for the new album? Did you have any other titles?
Actually, it was I think it was the art department at Frontiers that came up with that, and we loved it. Like, yeah, that's perfect.
I mean, I'm looking at the artwork. I mean, it's like a big cathedral, big.
Yeah, I mean, we made suggestions on the artwork, but they came up with the cathedral and everything, and they captured what we wanted in this thing. So I love that album cover. That's one of my favorite album covers I've ever been involved with. I love it.
It's kind of weird because the second album's called Phase 2, and this is called the Quantum Phase. Is there a connection?
Of course. Quantum phase. I mean, quantum phase is implying more new technology and more movement into the digital world and all that. And the quantum world, because once we get quantum computing and everything, things are going to change radically. And AI is going to advance leaps and bounds. Things are going to change dramatically in the next 10 years. And it's all because of the quantum phase.
Right. Do you have any new songs wrote for the next album, you and George? Are you guys collaborating at the minute, writing new songs?
No, I mean, there's always, as we're working, there's always, oh, wait a minute, comes up with a riff and, okay, let's record that. We got that for later. So there's probably a few of those. I don't remember necessarily, but no songs yet. I mean, we're not going to do another record till 26. So, I'm not worried about that.
So have you been getting good reviews for this new album?
Oh, man. The response has been phenomenal. I can't.
Did you actually see my review by any chance? Have you managed to check it out? Or
When did it come out?
it came out about 2 weeks ago.
I don't think so. I don't
Okay.
think it doesn't sound familiar.
Okay, you have to check it. I'll give it 4 out of 5 anyway. So it's
Nice.
yeah. So I mean, are you guys going to be touring this year? I mean, obviously with the third release, you've got enough material now to do your own songs and throw in a couple of Lynch Mob, Dokken songs, whatever you want to do as well.
Absolutely. Well, not this year. I don't see anything happening this year. We were hoping to try and do something over the holiday break where I'm off. I mean, I'm done with Foreigner in November. But this year is kind of, I mean, George is, this is his farewell ride for the Lynch Mob. He wants to kind of wrap up touring with the Lynch Mob by early next year. And this is the last year of Foreigner doing 9 months of the year touring. So things are going to open up a bit. I'm hoping there's pressure on us and there's the desire to do something next year if we can. But having said that, there's a lot of details, logistics, and expenses that are that make things very, very difficult. So let's just say we're working on it. We hope so. The desire is there, but no promises.
What do you think of the UK band Foreigner's Journey? Have you heard them?
They're friends of mine. The bass player, dear friend of mine. I think they're amazing. I think they're. I love the fact that they're out there doing it, and no, I support them 1000%.
Yeah, I managed to see them live once, and they were really, really good. Believe it
They're
or not,
really good. I mean, I'm flattered, and at the same time, I'm very proud of them because Paul, who's the bass player, is just an amazing guy, and I love the fact that he's doing it, and that it's gotten such a great response. That's a pretty cool thing.
All right. Well, I'll say, Jeff, I'd like to thank you for doing this interview. I wish you all the best.
My pleasure, man.
Do you have anything to say to the fans watching this on YouTube?
Oh, just thank you. Thank you for everything. Check it. We got a lot of music to check out with the new M Machine. I'm really encouraging you to check that out. And just thank you for years of support. It's because of the fans that we're able to make these records, and we make them out of our passion. So it's great to be able to do that. And just thank you to the people that keep supporting us.
Right, Jeff, do you have any other projects that the people that need to be aware of before we finish?
Well, I told you about the Prague project, which it's not going to come out for a while, but it's going to be really cool when it does come out. Third Black Swan, working on that. Told you about my meditation stuff.
Yeah.
I'm also working on a Foreigner live record and DVD. We filmed 3 shows just recently in Vegas, so I'm editing on that. So there's going to be that coming out probably in September. That's the goal for that. There is some Foreigner music that's unfinished that we're hoping we can finish and maybe put out sometime in 2025 when our touring time is a little less. But with that and with the Third Black Swan, I'm a pretty busy guy.
All right then, Jeff. Well, thank you for doing this interview. I wish you all the best.
Great. Well, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, my friend. You take care. Have a nice day.
Great interview. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Take care. All the best.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.